Commissioner Treese, little did I know until I looked at the weather report last night that there's an unexpected benefit to going to Hermiston for the AOC Legislative Committee. Their temperatures are in the 70s and 80s and sunny.
Good for you. I'm jealous.
Hey, good morning, commissioners. Welcome, and I will turn this over to you, Chair Harrington, and Commissioner Willie is joining right now.
Terrific. Thank you, Clerk Moss. Well, welcome everyone to the June 14th, 2022 Washington County Board of Commissioners work session. This is Chair Catherine Harrington. I'm joined by Commissioners Nafisa Faye, Pam Treese, Roy Rogers, and soon on camera will be Commissioner Jerry Willey. We have an agenda today, which I think we will be able to get through just this morning. So hopefully everyone has caught up with the modified agenda that includes a memo that I will do a brief intro of and then turn it over to Ms. Angie and Mr. Carr. But first, let's do board communication. Who would like to go first? Oh, we're raring to go today. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. Go right ahead.
Sure, thank you. I was in DC, as you all know, last week at a JPAC event. They are very scripted. I know the chair has been there as well in the past, and my role was to represent the Southwest Corridor project, which I have been in 1,000 meetings on. You all probably are up to date on that particular project. It's got FTA approval, so the only thing is the money. You know, it's always the money, and so it was well received. I also had the honor of giving Peter DeFazio a little gift from the group and saying a few words. I've known Peter a long time, and he's leaving. Said goodbye to Kurt Schrader. I think he's just a really great guy. Sorry to see him go, and said goodbye to him as well as hello to a whole bunch of other folks. The only thing that we did outside the normal JPAC was I met with Cliff Bentz. I'd never met with Cliff before, and I was pleasantly surprised to understand that he really was a big supporter of light rail. I didn't know that previously, and so he was very gracious with his time. He wasn't on the normal tour. We talked about TV Highway. That was Mayor Callaway and Truax. And for those of you who don't know, Pete is leaving in November. I know, Jerry, you're probably aware of that, but that's a strange time. I wasn't aware of their timing. So he'll be leaving his office in November of this particular year. Shirley Craddock is termed out, so that was, Shirley was saying her adieus as well. And she's been a terrific JPAC chair, really a great person. But staff did great, as they always do, and we just say a few words and show unity of the group. That's the whole message back there. So that was my last week.
Thank you for being there to represent Washington County in that regional trip. Would anyone else like to share any updates?
I can go ahead. Last week, or since last meeting, I had a really good meeting with LUT regarding all the transportation projects that are in District 2. There are quite a few of them, and they've been really good about keeping me up to speed. But the meeting was really focused on a long list of issues that are before us, and particularly in District 2. So I appreciate that. I also met yesterday with members of the Five Oaks Museum, and it was really interesting to hear what they're doing and how they're moving toward and Commissioner Faye, I know you know all this, but they're moving toward a kind of a reopening, if you will, on November 5th. So, but in the meantime, they've done a great job of keeping their exhibits online. So that was very interesting. Upcoming, I have a community action meeting this week. I have an ERMDAC meeting, and tonight I'm going to be at CPO 1, and I'm the speaker. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of those projects that I reviewed with LUT and the other issues that we're moving forward as a group. So that's my report.
Uh, Just a heads up before the CPO1 meeting, and I'm sure you've caught up with your on top of your email as well. But I am concerned that some of the messaging with regard to the CPO re-envisioning program is not well understood. So I'm hopeful that a member of the community engagement team can be there with you should that come up.
Thank you for that. I am Megan and I have been working around those issues as well. And I've received the emails and am aware that the revisioning process, that there's some issue with some of the CPO members and the CCI members in relationship to that.
Yeah.
So,
Okie dokie.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
I could go
Go ahead.
next.
Thank you.
Good morning. Jerry, I saw your reach for your mute button, but you're okay. Okay. Um, Commissioner Rogers, I saw some pictures of you in DC with the group. It looked like you all had great time. And I've also heard from the WCCC, this trip was really successful. And a lot of our delegations appreciate the sort of the consolidated effort and a consolidated message that we usually go to them in terms of representing Washington County rather than competing the scarcity of resource. So that was a great message. And I look forward to attending next year that trip, hopefully. Last week, I'll start off some of the events I attended. I attended the Coalition of Communities of Color event. They had their 20th anniversary or so event. Thank you, Brenda, for putting that on my calendar, and Marcus Mundy for the invite to attend. It was really a great event, and saw a lot of people that I have not seen for years, even prior to the pandemic. So it was a really good way to connect people and to see people are doing well and thriving and surviving and have survived the pandemic. And then I attended a lot of graduations. MET had the Muslim Educational Trust had their graduation, and my niece got into Howard University. Howard. My niece was telling me her mom gets it confused to say Harvard, but it's Howard Black University. So that's exciting and really excited. She's interested in majoring computer science. So kudos to all the 2022 graduating class. You've made it, and look forward to what their future comes about. And then I also attended an event that was organized by students, Beaverton City Hall last Saturday, and I think it was about gun safety and to raise awareness. So I appreciated any event that I can attend and look forward to participating more. Last week also I attended. I was just in the room and listened as a listening voice in ears. The WEA Joint Transportation, Land Use, Housing, and Government Relations Committee. They had an in-person meeting at City Hall as well. And the topic they were discussing was West Side Multimodal Transportation Option Study. And it was really good to hear how folks in their own way, from their own cities and their own work and their own visions and goals, how they center in equity around the study and how they bring in about. And it was really good to hear folks to try to point out that, what about the folks that depend on transportation that do not have a personal vehicle? So that was a really good conversation to listen into, and look forward to that study and how it's structured. I had a great meeting continuing that theme around transportation with Representative McLean, and the topic was really around Farmington. I might be sounding a bit obsessive about Farmington these days, but because the need is great, as you all know. And I think there's a momentum right now. A lot of people are seeing the problems as well and focusing on. So it's not me. There's a lot of you are elected officials that are, I think, are obsessed with Farmington as well. So good for the neighbors that, beyond east and west that utilize Farmington. So it really brings a hope to those folks that the problems that they've been having, everybody's paying attention to now. And our focus with Representative McLean that I'm really grateful to continue is around funding and to push some money to Stephen Roberts around having some lighting around Farmington. So that was a good positive experience conversation, and I'll keep you posted what comes out. Hopefully it'll end up in funding, but I'll keep you posted. And then yesterday we had our monthly meeting with WCCC. The topic on our agenda, the topics were very light. There's a um, request that was unanimously approved for Colenius toward construction project South and 29th Boulevard. And then majority of the conversation really centered around the MISTIP uh, 2023 to 28 preliminary project evaluation. And so the group made a recommendation to our board some projects to consider to put it to the community. So I look forward to our board discussion, and I'll make sure I'll bring my notes that I took yesterday to that conversation so that we hear the mayors and what WCCC is asking for our board. Um, and then one last thing I want to flag is Saturday, June 25th. There's a tour of TV Highway scheduled for the steering committee members. Myself and Commissioner Willie are on that committee. I cannot attend that day, and I think Commissioner Willie, you're not available as well. So I'm wondering if anybody else on our board is interested in attending that. But I can have Brenda specifically email. Yes, Chair Harrington. Oh, okay. You can, okay, perfect. Brenda will send you the details. Chair Harrington, thank you for stepping in for us, and we really appreciate that. And it should be really good and well organized. We'll send the details. Brenda will do that. And I think that concludes my update. I'll stop right there. Chair Harrington, do you have a question? Yes, go ahead.
I was wondering, you were mentioning MISTIP. Ms. Angie, can you confirm, since some calendar things have changed since the rolling agenda that was in the roundtable packet, will the MISTIP topic still be coming to us at our meeting on Tuesday, June 28th? Yeah, you're on mute, sorry.
Okay, well, helpful in that second, Stephen Roberts could send me a quick message that yes, we are still on for the
Okay.
28th. So technology saved me.
Great, great.
They
so
mentioned that yesterday. I just didn't want to jump in front of Tanya. Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to confirm that since the material in the WCCC packet and covered yesterday was further along, had advanced since we had last seen it here at the board. And I didn't want too long of a time period to go for commissioners to know that before it comes back to us. So if we receive any constituent questions or feedback on that topic before that work session, please don't hesitate to look at the presentation on the WCCC agenda website. Thank you. Well, that leaves you, Commissioner Willie.
Yes, thank you. And Nafisa, thanks for that update. And yes, you can continue to beat the Farmington drum. I think, as they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so keep up the good work on bringing that to the forefront. I did listen in to the WCCC discussion yesterday on the MSTIP money. the allocations, that was good. And so that was a good lead in for when we'll be discussing it as a commission. So it's always good to hear what the mayors think about that, and specifically in the 4 different districts allocation and things like that. So that was good conversation. I was in Houston last week for the International Rotary Convention. 11,000 Rotarians from all over the world had gathered there. It was a great conference. It was great just to hear what Rotary does internationally. There are more countries. There are more countries with Rotary clubs than the United Nations, than countries in the United Nations, and so it is a very broad, obviously, organization internationally, and they started a program for eradicating polio back in the 80s, and they are down to just about 2% now of eradicating polio, and it's been a really, really good program. Obviously, it takes a long time to do that, but certainly one of the marquee events of Rotary. Unfortunately, when we came back from Houston, we brought a little gift with us. Judy and I both have tested positive, and so we are hanging out at the house here for a while. So I have modified my calendar for my in-person visits to be all remote. So it's a good thing we have Zoom, and it hasn't been really terrible. So mine is just like a head cold. So I have lots of sniffles. So the GPI event that was scheduled for today, they're celebrating some new nonstop flights, and so I'm not going to be attending that, but certainly we'll get an update on that, and then a couple of other in-person meetings that I will either reschedule or go to Zoom. I did meet with on Zoom again with John Paul with Salmonberry Trail Foundation, and Allison Grace, who is the new board chair for the Salmonberry Trail Foundation. And we are talking about, they are asking if I would consider joining the foundation. Remember, I'm on board with the Salmonberry Trail Intergovernmental Agency. I'm a board member there representing the county. We're not sure what this position would look like, if it would be if I'd be representing as a county commissioner. Then I'll come back and have that conversation with you, because I think there's some hoops we have to jump through to do that. If not, I will probably represent that personally. So we'll have more conversations about that, because I don't know how that works and what your thoughts are as a commission. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else to report.
I don't know if the audio from our meeting way back one in 2019 is available for Megan McKibben to listen to, perhaps, because I recall we did talk about the 2 committees back then, and some thoughts and concerns with regard to what perceived obligations come with the county having a seat on the foundation or not. So that's, it might be helpful to have some research done there. So, and I'm sorry you have COVID. I've been continuing to wear my mask when in public places, including in the building, simply because I have a lot of travel and different events coming up, and I want to try and prevent getting it and spreading it myself. So, I do hope you'll feel better soon.
Well, it took 2.5 years for it to catch up with me, so I guess I was due. But worse than that is that we were supposed to take care of our grandson starting today for the rest of the week. And so we've had to call in my daughter, and she's going to do the backup. But yeah, so we missed that.
Sorry about that. Best laid plans, right? All righty. So I'll cover my items. As Commissioner Fye mentioned, last Tuesday night was the Coalition of Communities of Color 20th year celebration. She and Commissioner Treese and myself were there, And it was the biggest event, people-wise, that I have attended yet as part of the great reopening, if I can refer to it as that. And the venue, well, I guess the OLCV one was pretty sizable too, wasn't it, Commissioner Treese? It was at the same venue with the doors open and everything. So worked out really well. Last Thursday afternoon, for the second week in a row, I donned my Clean Water Services shirt for an external event for the Balm Grove Dam removal project, which was a public event to share information with our community about how that project is proceeding. And it was really, it's a project that I've heard about for years, but it's good to see its current state. It's along Gales Creek, and it's a site of a former recreational complex that included cabins, a baseball diamond, somewhat of a store, a boardwalk. And those buildings are gone now, and Clean Water Services has done some invasive species removal, but and native grant plantings, but they haven't done the full-on restoration because of the need to bring in appropriate construction machinery to remove all of the concrete structures that make up the dam. And there are really two barriers to fish passage. There's the vertical portion of the dam, and then there's a sizable concrete sloped portion. So if fish can make it over the concrete dam, then they slap right onto this long concrete slope instead of into a pool, allowing them to swim forward. So the combination of the two has been pretty significant to both cutthroat trout and particular salmon species that unfortunately I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a significant project. So it was really neat to be there, talk to area residents and hear about their history with the property. And as always, the Clean Water Services team just did a terrific job of bringing the project to life. And it was fun to hear about what's going to happen after the removal of the dam, with restoration, but also with monitoring over the future years to see the effect of the native plantings and the contribution to water quality and to wildlife. So that was pretty cool. We'll be talking in a couple minutes about preschool for all conversations. I'll just say that, well, I'll leave it at that and leave the rest for the intro. I also want to note that, wow, here we are, the middle of June. I want to thank you all for ensuring that our policy assistants have information on our comings and goings over the next few summer months. It's really helping ensure that as a board and an agency, we're able to make highest use of your limited time in the many weeks ahead for getting to the important policy and investment decision-making and conversations that we have as the Board of County Commissioners, but also as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and the Housing Authority of Washington County. So thank you very much. Oh, I forgot to mention, yesterday was the flag raising of the Juneteenth flag. Oh, so hopefully, Commissioner Willie, you've had a chance to see the photographs or the videos. It was a wonderful ceremony yesterday to once again hear of history, but also of the personal meaning for many members of our staff. So as we have noted before, our employees are one of our most valuable assets for ensuring that as a county government, we are successful in delivering services as needed for our community. Later this afternoon, I will be heading to Hermiston to attend tomorrow's Association of Oregon Counties Legislative Committee retreat. So I'll provide an update on that upon my return, or at least next Tuesday. What's on the agenda is just framing up guiding principles and focus areas for the remainder of the year, but more importantly, setting the stage for next year's long session. Then this upcoming weekend, I will be unavailable. I'm on a plane Friday and Monday, going to Maine to celebrate my youngest uncle's 80th birthday. So it'll be fun to see all my cousins again, but this time for a happy occasion. So yeah, so that'll be good. And yes, thank you, Commissioner Fye, for mentioning high school graduations. It's really been fun to see all the different celebrations going on out and about, and including on social media. So it's that time of year. The academic school year will be ending, and thank goodness our students had the benefit of being in the classroom for a full year. And so may everyone have a terrific summer season, and we start off another academic year successfully come September. So that's it from me. I would like to intro the next topic if I could, and that is the memo that is in our board packet. Oh, but before I do that, sorry, I had another note for myself. I just wanted to highlight for all of you that we have a memo from our public health team as shared with us from Mira Samantel. So it's with regard to the tobacco ordinance 878, if I remember the number right, and hookah and shisha. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, I just wanted to try and help and bring that forward to our attention. Our staff's been doing a great job of giving us different briefing memos to help us have the full context of issues. And maybe we can sync up on that just to see if there are any questions or any other actions the board wishes to take. Not that I'm suggesting any. Okay, on the referral memo that is in our packet. So I believe I mentioned last Tuesday that the principals of the Preschool for All effort, the co-chairs and other key leaders have been doing their work. And on or around 2 weekends ago, they had meeting with school district board members. And so at least Commissioner Treese and I were getting a lot of phone calls, emails, requests for information and support. And we have been totally following board direction as we had our conversation back in April. But what I felt we were dealing with is that the 5 of us are more familiar with what is involved with considering a topic for ballot, for funding and putting such a proposal to the voters than is common knowledge. So Ms. Angie and I talked, and I asked some key questions to ask staff to put down in writing for the benefit of not just us, but for our community to know. So really, what is involved with putting any kind of financing referral forward. And, what is involved there? It's not as easy as just putting a topic on the agenda one week and making a decision. So I just wanted to share that context before we move forward and see if there are any questions or comments on that. And without further ado, I'd like to turn the floor over to Ms. Angie and Mr. Carr.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good morning, board. As the chair indicated, there is a memo included within your packet that outlines really three key questions. The first is, what are the requirements for a Board of County Commissioners sponsored funding referral? And really the first step is determination of the scope of services that you're desiring to provide. And then key fundamentals also include collection process of a tax, finance, how is that going to be distributed, contracting, oversight, et cetera, and then governance or oversight of implementation of the measure. Each of those have several components of work in those major buckets for the board to have like key milestones or key decision points along the way. Relative to what I understand, Preschool for All Washington County is proposed to have an income tax structure. Currently, Washington County does not collect income tax. We do not have the internal infrastructure in place to do so. So that would require staffing up within our assessment taxation. And it's not just collection. Collection also includes enforcement of non-payment of taxes. The other option is to explore other governmental entities who collect income tax and work through an IGA process that would meet the board's expectations on that tax collection. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions around that first key area. Okay. So then what is the process for the board to move forward a board sponsored funding referral to the ballot for this year? So within this paragraph, it outlines the time for that referral. In essence, the board would need to take formal action before August 18th of this year. And so all of the steps that I had outlined above regarding a board referral process has not been worked on within Washington County as an organization. Any questions on that area? Okay, then the third question is, what subject matter expertise has been provided to Preschool for All? So within a state grant that we receive, we've had two staff, Rebecca Collette, our hub co-director and maternal health and child program health supervisor, was a non-voting participant of the task force work group to provide technical assistance about early learning and as a liaison to the state early learning program. Evan Weaver participated in the infrastructure and workforce committees. These two committees provided technical assistance and documents for the task force deliberations. In all instances, staff was clear their role was technical assistance as part of a grant expectation from our early learning state funding. Rebecca and Evan did have a couple of internal conversations with information technology, finance, and assessment taxation to learn more about current capacity, but those conversations immediately stopped based on the board's direction in April. Happy to answer any questions on that key question or any other questions that may not be included.
I don't have a question, Tanya. I just want to say thank you very much. There was a lot of questions that I didn't know and a lot of information and procedures. So thank you for putting together that memo. It was great.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in too. When I read that, I was surprised a little bit how many different meetings we'd had staff-wise, but it was well written. Tax measures are very complex in their administrative functions. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of thought. And so I thought that you and your staff really did a good job of trying to cover some of the complexities that aren't always obvious, to everyone.
Thank you, commissioners. We wanted to make sure that all of us had the benefit of good information and that we remain true to the fact that we've talked about this topic in public and have continued to do so. So thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Angie.
And Chair, I do want to just ensure for those that may be listening from the public, the memo that's being referred is in the packet so that the public can refer to that for this information as well.
And feel free to step right into leadership communication.
Okay, so I do have information packed leadership update today. So I will be asking that Clerk Moss include this information in today's packet because I think it's good information for our community. And also I'm going to be sharing data. So that's always hard to sometimes absorb in a leadership update. So our wood stove program hits a 600 stone milestone. So this is great news. Our community development office reported that they just installed the 600th clean wood stove. That puts the program at 91% of its original goal of preventing the emission of 50 tons of harmful fine particulate matter from the wood smoke in our community. So this is great news. To date, the program has also eliminated over 260 tons of harmful gases and over 2,000 tons of carbon emissions. The program continues to offer rebates of $1,500 to $3,500 for replacing old wood stoves or inserts with newer, cleaner models. And some households may qualify for free replacements, depending on the size of household and income. We're very proud of our work of our community development and sustainability program team that they've done this over the years in your board's leadership in this program as well. Workforce development investments. Earlier this year, the board allocated ARPA funds for workforce development. Late last week, the county notified 9 organizations that they were the awardees of ARPA workforce development funds. We are pleased to report that the county's $2 million investment will leverage more than $1.6 million of partner funds towards workforce development. The goals of this investment include providing employment training, career development, and wraparound supports that connect residents to quality jobs for workers displaced by the pandemic, strategically invest in local workforce partners to build and expand capacity in the local workforce development system, and create new opportunities for workers to enter or advance in their careers, including career exploration, career basic, classes, retraining, or rapid training programs. So this is really exciting to put these dollars in action and really a demonstration of our team working in collaboration to leverage the ARPA dollars with other dollars in our community. We will, you will see a press release regarding this investment later this week or early next week. And I did want to also provide an elections update. We're pleased to announce our new elections manager, Dan Forrester, will start on June 27th. Dan holds a bachelor's degree from University of Minnesota. And I do hear my O's coming out every time I say Minnesota from my roots there. Dan comes from Multnomah County, where over the past 8 years, he's worked in the county's elections department in 3 successive positions: elections project manager, elections systems program specialist, and senior program specialist. So welcome, Dan, and we are really happy to get this critical role in place. We do want to extend our deep appreciation and leadership, not only here in Washington County, but actually across the country and internationally. Is known to be an elections really expert and tapped into her expertise. We are going to be contracting with Mickey to help with this transition so that we ensure confidence and smooth elections operations. In other elections news, election results have been submitted to the Secretary of State website, and most results are posted to the county website except for precincts. Elections is currently working to update the precincts, and we're anticipating that will be completed with the final results today. And that concludes my update.
Any board questions on that? Any of that? No? Okay. How about you, Mr. Carr?
Good morning, Chair. I will be very brief. Last week, I mentioned that we were defending a lawsuit filed by the tobacco industry against Ordinance 878. There had been a threat of a temporary restraining order motion. That motion was in fact filed. The judge denied that motion, but did grant a hearing on a potential preliminary injunction motion. That hearing is scheduled for June 21st. Which would be before the ordinance goes into effect on July 1st. John Mansfield continues to do excellent work in defending that litigation for the county. With respect to the Ridwell litigation, I'm filing today the county's response to the objections to the magistrate's recommendations. The process was the county moved to dismiss. The magistrate recommended dismissing most claims, keeping a couple. I objected to that part 2 weeks ago. The Ridwell objected to the part not dismissing the complaints. I'm responding to their objection. The judge will make a decision or hear oral argument in the near future. But we proceed. That's the end of my update. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Taniguchi Dennis, Clean Water Services.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good morning, Board of Clean Water Services. It's been a busy June for the team. I wanted to let you know that the treasury transfer of the investment portfolio has now been completed, and I really want to thank Tanya Angie and her team at Washington County and also the Clean Water Services team for their dedicated work on this project. And we're very grateful for that. The team is extremely busy with the Department of Environmental Quality as part of the renewal process of our watershed-based permit. We are currently in the applicant review phase and comment phase, and we really appreciate the detailed work of DEQ and our regulatory affairs team in finding the solutions to manage water quality and the environmental needs of the Tualatin River. And we're very excited about the Balm Grove Dam project and the dividends that it will pay environmentally for the fish and for the environment there. So thank you, Chair, for being part of that and the other folks that attended it. So that's all I have for today.
Any last board questions or comments?
I have one. Tanya, I forgot to say it because people come and then they go and we don't always see them. But Mickey has done just a great job, outstanding. And I would hope that you'd pass on for probably this entire board what a tremendous job she's done. I think I met her 40 years ago, but she's somebody who probably not that long ago. It just seems that long, but I think she was there when I was in the city. But what a terrific individual, staying power, just her ethics, her administrative functions. I mean, it's been superb. So thank her.
I will definitely pass that on. I know my first month being with Washington County, I met Margaret Garza and Mickey, and Margaret started to share just Mickey's network and how so many jurisdictions tap into her wealth of knowledge and expertise. And she also is a servant and humble leader. And that's what's so amazing about her, and really thankful that she's willing to stay on as a contract so that we can try to glean all of her wisdom, or at least borrow some of it before she goes on to her next adventure.
Well, as you've mentioned, Mickey has a lot of experience and integrity in the whole industry. And she has helped others develop their careers through the elections area of service and understanding that is so key to us here in the United States, especially in democracies around the world. She's when three of us joined the board in 2019, we in the summertime in June got some information or asked some information about the retirement flow, if I can refer to that, given demographics, age demographics here in our community, but also in our employee base and the opportunity that retirement programs allow for. So Mickey has been very generous in helping people in their career paths, but she's also been very generous with her time in ensuring that Washington County's election office is left in good hands. You know, I really appreciate that. She's just been so thoughtful. And as you mentioned, folks around the state, the country, the world I didn't know about, look to Mickey as a source of information. So Commissioner Rogers is right about passing on our thanks, very much so. All righty then, without further ado, we'll move on to our next topic, which is solid waste and recycling annual rate review findings and recommendation. So I'd like to turn it over to Mara Samantel and Thomas Eggleston. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Harrington. Well, good morning, Chair Harrington, Board of County Commissioners. I'm pleased to be here with you today. My name is Mira Samantha. I'm the Interim Director for Health and Human Services, and we are presenting today about garbage and recycling collection service annual rate review process and presenting recommendations for your consideration. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tom Eggleston, our Solid Waste and Recycling Manager.
Thank you, Mira. Good morning, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. Nice to be with you this morning. So we will go ahead and jump into our presentation related to the annual rate review process. Next slide, please. So a quick overview or agenda for our presentation today. We're going to start talking about the purpose, desired outcome, and policy questions before your board. We will then talk about the rate review process and practice as a reminder. We will look at our rate review findings from this year. We will also talk about a little bit about the low income rate program that we discussed with your board on the May 24th work session. Go into proposed rate adjustments, stakeholder engagement, and a recommendation. Next slide, please. So the purpose today of this conversation is to provide your board with an overview of the annual garbage and recycling collection rate review analysis and findings. And our desired outcome is that your board provides direction to staff regarding collection rate adjustments and authorizes staff to return with an action item at your board's regular meeting on June 28th, 2022. Next slide, please. The policy question today is, should garbage and recycling rates be adjusted to maintain a 10% return on revenue for certificated garbage collectors or haulers? Next slide, please. So I'd like to start out with an overview of the rate review process. This slide might be familiar from last year, if at least it is for me, because this is my world, but this is a kind of a 10-step process that we'll walk through for our rate review actions. So every year, between March 15th and the end of June or July, staff work through our rate review analysis and process. We start with number one, and that process starts on March 15th with a deadline for certificate holders to submit their detailed cost reports. These reports contain a substantial amount of financial and programmatic data, and it allows the county to review their service provision and ensure that community members are receiving adequate services at just, fair, and reasonable rates. After the reports are received, staff and our contracted CPA firm, which is currently Marina and Company, review the reports for accuracy and consistency. Step two, we compare those reports to previous year's data industry standards, and known data points such as published disposal costs when we're evaluating those reports. Step 3, after our initial review, we do pull out a subset of those cost reports and conduct a more in-depth analysis and site visits for certain selective haulers. These site visits are an opportunity for our team and our CPA firm to align submitted data with supporting documentation to ensure that it meets the rigors of our process. Number 4, after the site visits and any adjustments are made, any adjustments are made based on the review and the findings of those site visits, we consolidate all the reports together and we establish an overall system composite report. So all 9 certificate holders reports are combined into a single composite report. After that, we take the composite report and we identify the system-wide return on revenue or the system's profit margin. We also identify each line of services return of revenue in this process. From there, we identify what adjustments would be necessary to maintain the target return on revenue, which is currently 10%. We take those adjustments and recommendations to the Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee to request a recommendation to your Board of Commissioners for board action. We then come to your board, which is where we are today, and we'll be back on the 28th, provided you give us that direction to take board action on those rates. We added a step 9 this year in that we are actually proposing that we push back the effective date of the rates to August 1st instead of July 1st. That gives us an additional 30 days to provide adequate notice to our community members that rates would be adjusted. That has not been part of the process in the past, and last year received some feedback that more adequate notice would be preferred. So we're adding that into the process this year. And then on step 10, the rates are adjusted at the customer level. And if the process timeline is as proposed, it would be an August 1st effective date for those rate adjustments. Next slide, please. A little bit more about the approach for rate review. There's some standards that we apply. First, our process differs slightly from other jurisdictions in that we are only actually evaluating expenses from the previous calendar year. We look at real true costs that have been incurred by the solid waste collectors. And by practice, we are not making projections or making estimates for future costs that may be incurred by those providers. We also, as I mentioned in the previous slide, conduct site visits for haulers. And our practice is that we conduct every year site visits for the largest percentage, the haulers that represent the largest percentage of system revenue. In our current system, we have 3 of our larger service providers that are bringing in 75% of our overall system revenue. Those providers receive an automatic site visit every year based on the impact that their data has on the overall composite. We also do have opportunity to request in-depth reviews for other service providers if we see anomalies or inconsistencies in their annual reports. We do identify discrepancies and we make adjustments for those discrepancies in these reports. Some examples of those adjustments are disposal costs that are reported as being higher than what we know the published disposal costs to be, or incompatible data. For example, if driver hours and truck hours do not align. We do then calculate rates needed to cover all of the reasonable expenses and provide an opportunity for the haulers to achieve the target return on revenue of 10%. So the practice is to adjust back to that 10% target ROR every year. We also maintain a cost of service model. And what this means is that we do not combine costs and revenues between different service lines. And those 3 service lines that we're evaluating are commercial services, which is more the traditional front load containers, residential service, which is the automatic side loader trucks that most of our community members receive directly, and then drop box service, which is large garage cleanout or construction project lines of service. We do evaluate each line of service on its own, and they do not cross subsidize each other in our system. Next slide, please. So now the annual rate review findings for 2022. These are findings based on 2021 financial data that was submitted by the haulers this year. Excuse me. You'll see that the overall return on revenue for the entire system was at 12.61%. So that is pretty significantly higher than the 10% target. If you break that down by line of service, you can see residential line of service operating at about 12.14%, commercial 13.5%, and drop box at 13.69%. Those combined composites result at our 12.61%. And again, this ROR calculation is based on revenue, subtracting expenses, and we're resulted with income or profit. And we take profit and divide that by revenue, which identifies the return on revenue for that system. Next slide, please. Some of the factors that contributed to the ROR that we discovered this year based on our CPA firm's analysis, we did see an increase of 8.5% in overall system revenue. That was likely the result of rate adjustments in 2021. We did see a pretty significant rate adjustment for the residential sector last year. We also made some adjustments for disposal costs last year's rate review. We also saw customer growth and also the return of commercial sector activity, likely the result of more commercial activity as the community was starting to start back up from the COVID pandemic. So again, we're looking at 2021 in this analysis. We did see an increase in direct costs, but the increase in direct costs was much smaller than the increase in revenue. So 1.4% increase in direct costs and that smaller expense increase, a smaller expense increase than what we saw in revenue growth. Another contributing factor this year is we did see a 40% reduction in the cost of processing recyclables. As you may recall, in the 2017 timeframe, we experienced a system disruption in recycling markets and we began paying for recycling instead of receiving income from recycling for our system. And we've seen a little bit more favorable recyclable markets over the last year plus, and some of those cost savings are impacting our analysis this year with a reduction in costs on that line. We did also see a marked decrease in repair and maintenance costs, likely a circumstantial for any particular calendar year. There was no big trends in there for that. Next slide, please. I also wanted to bring back the reduced low-income reduced rate proposal as we talked about with your board on May 24th, and we received direction from your board to incorporate this into this year's rate review process, which we're excited about. Just as a reminder, the reduced rate would offer about a 75% discount to standard rate residential rate payers at or below 185% of the federal poverty level. The analysis of the rate review process or the reduced rate project found that it would require approximately $610,000 in annual revenue to fully fund such a reduced rate. And we have found in this year's rate review that residential revenue that was earned over the target ROR is sufficient to fund the fully fund the reduced rate program without any residential rate adjustments. Next slide, please. So here is a proposed rate adjustment overview, kind of a summary of the proposal. The adjustments are, these are the adjustments needed to achieve a 10%, or I'd say maintain a 10% return on revenue and implement a low income reduced rate program. So our findings are that for residential, we would maintain no rate adjustment, and in lieu of that, we would implement a reduced rate program. For commercial, would require a 3.9% reduction, which is about $4.23 per month for a business that receives a 4-yard container one time a week. And for Dropbox, we would see a 4.1% reduction, which would result in about a $7.16 savings per haul for a 20-yard Dropbox. Next slide, please. A quick overview of some stakeholder engagement. Sorry, I'm moving things around on my screen here. The Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee did meet and discuss this proposal on May 19th. The GRAC voted to recommend that your board adopt the proposed rate decreases and implement the low income rate program for residential customers in lieu of a rate decrease for that line of service. The GRAC further amended the recommendation to recommend that if your board does not adopt a low income rate program, that it does in fact reduce rates for residential customers across the board. We did also this year add a new interested parties mailing list to our process. And so we do send notification of opportunity to comment for the GRAC meeting on May 19th to community members. There's about 250 folks signed up for that mailing list. We did not get any public comment at that meeting. We have had a little bit of more engagement with some community members at past meetings on this topic, but not at that conversation itself. And then finally, we are pleased to come together with Washington County Haulers Association and have received support from the Washington County Haulers Association for this combined recommendation as on the record at the May 19th Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee meeting. Next slide, please. So an overview of staff's recommendation. Staff is recommending that the following rate adjustments become effective August 1st, 2022, a 3.9% rate decrease for commercial container service, a 4.1% rate decrease for commercial Dropbox service, or Dropbox occasional container, excuse me, And additionally, staff is recommending a low income rate program be implemented on January 1st, 2023 in lieu of a residential can cart rate decrease. Next slide, please. Back to our policy question, is should garbage and recycling rates be adjusted to maintain a 10% return on revenue for certificated haulers? And I think that is it. Next slide. That is it. Thank you very much. Open to any questions or discussion.
Commissioners, any questions or comments on this recommendation? Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate this information as usual. Refresh my memory. How many haulers do we have?
We have 9 certificate holders.
Okay. So 3 of those generate 75% of the revenue. So that means 6 of them get to divvy up the other 25%. So is your results weighted for that, the big 3 there? Or is it just kind of a throw them all together and divide?
It is a system-wide composite. So we don't weight rates or adjust rates for individual service providers.
Okay. I just wondered what kind of what impact that would have on the smaller haulers, and what impact these decisions have on the smaller haulers versus the 3 bigs.
I would say, Commissioner, I would say we do see the financial results for each individual hauler, and we have that data. It is individual information about a business, so we could share that offline if that's something you're interested in. We don't see necessarily a huge disadvantage for any of the smaller providers per se. They are all operating with reasonable returns on revenue. No one's operating in the negative or anything along those lines. Some of our haulers that are smaller do just serve really small areas in the county. We have a provider that serves, say, 120 customers outside of the city of Tualatin, or we have a hauler that provides service to 150 customers south of Cornelius. So a lot of those haulers are operating just small parts of the county, and then most of their services is within a city that's close to their service area.
Okay, yeah, I think I just want to make sure that the decisions we make don't have kind of an adverse impact on our smaller haulers, since this is a pretty skewed, I guess, when you have 3 generating 75%. Well, I think you and I have talked about my concerns about reducing things. This is based on results in 21, and since January, we have seen a significant increase in certain costs, gas and things like that. So would you please respond to that while I'm going to go on mute and cough? So thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. So our practice is that we do not project future costs. This is one of the more challenging parts of rate review processes. Some of our local government partners do projections, and it's always a challenge to arrive at a mutually agreed upon projected future costs with our service providers. So in turn, my understanding is historically the county has agreed to a little bit higher of a target return on revenue, 10%, which is higher than some of our local government partners, in exchange for not going through the projection process. We also do have the ability to make an exception to that in our process for future significant known and measurable costs. And this is a challenging situation, and a lot of those are not known and measurable. They might be significant in many ways, shapes, or form with inflation. But we don't have the data really to support a good analysis for what that future costs may be increase. The other part of it is that there's this regulatory lag that we're playing with in this system, where we're looking back at real costs, and then next year we're going to come back and look back at real costs. And so there's always going to be a little bit of a delay. So if costs are increasing for things like fuel, we'll see that in the next year's rate review, and those rates will catch up to that. So it's always kind of this dance, and we're experiencing about an 18-month regulatory lag in our process here. Fuel is something that's significantly been impacted by inflation. Fuel is a pretty small part of the composite cost for the haulers. I think it's between 1 and 1.5% of their overall cost portfolio. So it does have an impact on the system, but it would not have a significant impact like wages and disposal, which are also being that have upward pressures, but those are costs that we would see next year in the rate review process.
Okay, Thomas, thank you very much. I appreciate that information and certainly appreciate the work that you and your staff do on this. The haulers spend a significant amount of time preparing this information for you as well. And so this is, I think it's really important that the haulers are on board with this, and that speaks loudly for me. So I'm okay with that. Thank you, Thomas.
Go ahead, Commissioner Rogers.
Yes, thank you. And Jerry, thanks for your questions. You kind of teased at some things I was going to ask as well. If my memory serves me correctly, unless you have changed your process, Tanya Moffat, who does this work, these are not based upon any reviews or audits. These are based upon self-prepared financial information of the haulers, and she simply assembles them and comes to some conclusions. Thomas, has that changed at all, or is that the same?
Well, we don't use the term audit, and our CPAs has a very particular meaning, is my understanding. So they don't want to use the term audit. We do compile those detailed cost reports, and we combine those reports, and then we do review for inconsistencies or incompatible data based on a database of previous rate reviews, so we know what the historical trends for those costs were. And then for the larger service providers, we do conduct site visits, and so we'll line up disposal receipts with what reported disposal receipts were. So we're kind of doing that double checking on that, but I understand that it's not considered an audit in the official terms that are used by our CPA firm.
It's not a review either under the official terms. It's what we call a compilation, which is simply taking self-prepared information and putting it in a fashion. That's neither here nor there. I just want to make certain that process was still the same. The two issues I have is I think Commissioner Willie was kind of, as I said, teasing at it. It was one, on the smaller haulers, whenever it's an aggregate, there are issues. There can be, and the reason that there are so few anymore, when I started there were many more, is it's very expensive to run these operations, and so every time a family wants to sell out, they sell out to one of the other franchise holders. And so I just want to make certain, whenever you're reducing rates, it's always a problem, because you could see a spike then the following year when the economy changes. And for those who are geeky like me, many are saying we're entering a recession, some are saying we're in it, some are saying it's coming fast. Costs are spiking. They're going to spike a lot. And so my question is not so much that you have a crystal ball, because I know you don't, but would it be fair, since these are not based upon audited reviewed financial statements, but on compilations, to do something a little more current than 18 months, something that would be more midstream? I made a mistake. This goes way back when I was mayor at Tualatin, and we looked at something similar, and we said, well, let's hold rates or reduce them, only to find that we had a huge spike, a year or two later. And it's pretty hard to explain to people why these spikes are occurring. So when you have these long gestation periods, and in a sense, again, you're not auditing or reviewing in our nomenclature, what would hurt you from doing like a 6-month review in January, just to see if things have changed significantly?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Rogers. I mean, the staff time that it takes to do the rate review is a pretty significant investment. It's a project that takes up most of the work plan for one of our staff between the months of March and June of every year. So there's an investment to do that, kind of a midterm or mid-year review. We have done some emergency actions in the past. The recycling surcharge, when the recycling markets tanked, was an example of the Haulers Association came to the county and said, we need some help. This is a significant impact. We need to do something about it. And we conducted a review and took some action for relief there. The other things, you're absolutely right. If we see a decrease and costs go up, we might see an increase again. And when we operate on a hard target of 10%, I think it's almost impossible to hit it on the nail on the head. So we're kind of always jumping and bouncing around on that 10% target line. Some jurisdictions have ranges say 8 to 12% with a target of 10. If it's outside of that range, we make an adjustment. If it's in the range, we hold it steady, up, above, or below. So those are some things that we could look into. And if your board is interested in exploring those things further, we could bring something back to you between now and next year's rate review if that's of interest.
Two final things, and I'll stop. One is exactly where you went. It would be interesting to see if there was a range, like a lot of things, so your adjustments wouldn't be so pronounced. And my last plug, and this is against all of our former boards that I've served on, I've made this point more than once in the past years. It's too bad that we don't design, because it's easy to do, a model in which, instead of having to use old dated compiled financial information, as we call it, and send it outside, that we couldn't have a robust internal document, and you can design them, we've just never chosen to do it, in which we could plug the numbers ourselves and arrive at some fairly good assumptions. And so it's a shame we've never done it over the years, but I just say that and encourage all of you to consider. You can build the tool. I mean, you don't have to always buy the tool. You can build a tool and then have it reviewed on the outside from time to time to see if it's working. So anyway, I'll stop with that.
Commissioner Fire, Commissioner Treese, do you have any questions or comments? No, thumbs up.
Thumbs up for me as well. Thomas, I'm wondering, the question about the policy, just for the viewing audience and to our community, if we could just streamline it a little bit, maybe you can explain it better. But the question you're asking our board to give you a thumbs up, it's actually considering the staff's recommendation, which is actually slide 10, explains it very well, but it wasn't clear when you were asking that question. So am I understanding you correctly? The 10%, which is the staff recommendation, the 3 and the 4%.
Feel free to remind me of really what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely, Chair Harrington. The regional service standard is the container color coding standards, and the requirement only applies to multifamily sector. So those bins in apartment communities. There's a push for expansion into the community residential sector, but it's really the focus is starting in the multifamily sector, and the timeline is through 2028 to get those bins replaced, and that lines up with the 7-year depreciation schedule. So it should limit the cost of equipment turnover because it lines up with the depreciation schedule on that equipment. We can certainly come back with a kind of a graph showing some of those the rates over the years and kind of the significant program changes when they happened. And you're right, another one is the commercial food scraps collection service, which became a bundled service in line with the requirement on businesses that they separate food from garbage for those restaurant sector type businesses.
Well, you do a great job working on behalf of our community, living in both the urban unincorporated areas and the unincorporated rural areas. So thank you very much for your continued work. Without further ado, it looks like we have board thumbs up for staff to move forward with this recommendation.
Thank you very much. We'll be back on the 28th for your meeting.
And thank you for instituting that new step 9 as well. That'll help households and businesses with their financing plans from month to month. Good job.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're updating our rates webpage this year. We're going to put QR codes on the rate letters so that if community members are really interested in learning more about the process and how rates are set and what all is available to them, they'll be able to get quicker access to that information.
Great. All righty. Thank you. Take care. Next, we'll move on to a staff briefing of the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, also referred to as CPACE. So we'll turn it over to Matt Kriege, our Economic Development Manager. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Harrington, board members. So nice to be with you all this morning. For the record, my name is Matt Craigie. I'm the county's Economic Development Manager. Today I'll be presenting on the CPACE program, which is a county-enabled real estate finance program that focuses on encouraging sustainability in the built environment. This program came to our attention via Commissioner Treese. Thank you, Commissioner Treese. And also staff from the city of Tigard, as there are 2 projects within the city of Tigard that are interested in CPACE financing. In total, we are aware of 4 projects across the county that are interested in CPACE at this time. Although we have not conducted extensive outreach, and we expect that there are likely more projects that would want to use this program. I would like to also recognize and show appreciation for the staff that helped pull together this preliminary analysis. Staff including folks from the County Administrative Office, Assessment and Taxation, Sustainability, Land Use and Transportation, and Finance all helped with this preliminary research. Next slide, please. This is an introductory conversation to CPACE. The purpose of today's presentation and discussion is to introduce the CPACE program, and in doing so, discuss how the program works, its benefits and risks, policy connections, and should your board decide to move forward, what next steps would look like. Next slide, please. I have 3 discussion questions for your board today. These questions are, what questions do you have about the CPACE program? What additional information do you need? And what questions do you have about the next steps? Next slide, please. What is CPACE? CPACE is a real estate finance program that incentivizes clean energy, energy efficiency, water efficiency, and seismic systems. CPACE stands for Commercial Property Assessment Clean Energy. The primary goal of the program is to promote resilience and sustainability in the built environment. Eligibility is broad across all types of commercial properties. It can be for all types of commercial properties, including office, industrial, agriculture, hotels, multifamily housing, affordable multifamily housing, and mixed-use developments. Property ownership can be for-profit or not-for-profit. Single detached residential housing is not eligible for the CPACE program. Examples of eligible building improvements include things like EV charging stations, solar and wind energy, HVAC systems, boilers and furnaces, water conservation systems, and seismic upgrades. Next slide, please. CPACE is enabled in Oregon via state statute. As I will explain in a minute, because the financing acts as an assessment and involves a property lien, a county ordinance is required for local program implementation. CPACE is active in many states. In Oregon, CPACE is currently active only in Multnomah County. Multnomah County's program is administered by Prosper Portland, the economic development agency of the city of Portland, via an IGA with the county. Multnomah County and their partners have actually gone so far as to brand the CPACE program Property Fit within Multnomah County. To date, they have financed 4 projects. These projects have used CPACE financing for seismic upgrades, increased water and energy efficiency, and actually using CPACE, one building, the PAE building in downtown Portland, even met the rigorous performance standards of the Living Building Challenge, an audited building performance standard that requires buildings to achieve net positive energy and the highest performance of water, energy, and waste systems. It's today's gold standard for climate-friendly construction. Deschutes County is also in the process of implementing a CPACE program. And actually, our new CFO, Greg Munn, comes from Deschutes County and is quite familiar with the program. He's here today, and at the end of this presentation, is able to answer any detailed financial questions that I might not be able to answer. The program is also active in Washington State and has been a popular finance tool in Clark County, the most populous county in Southwest Washington County. Next slide, please. CPACE, how does it work? CPACE programs are typically set up to allow private lender financing to private property owners. No county financing or even being party to the payments or transactions is necessary. The CPACE process involves several steps, including identification and verification of the improvements, finance negotiation between private parties, recording of the property lien, repayment of private property by the private property owner to the private lender, Again, note that payment dollars do not need to go through the county. It is a private transaction. Verification of the improvements and their performance can be conducted by a third party, and state statute allows counties to charge to administer the program. In the event of a default, a private lender can push for the property to go through foreclosure, in which case CPACE delinquencies would be enforced through the normal foreclosure process. To date, there have been very few CPACE foreclosures nationwide. Next slide, please. The CPACE program offers a range of benefits and mitigatable risks. The CPACE benefits to the county include an efficient tool for the county to encourage building resilience and construction. Again, this is the primary purpose of the program, to enable and encourage the use of more climate-friendly and resilient building systems. The program would also provide economic benefits. Because CPACE lowers a property owner's financial risk, lowers the financing costs of building construction, and can lower ongoing operational costs, it can act as a financial incentive for development. New commercial development in the county is a driver of economic growth, leading to increased spending, job creation, and additional tax revenue. CPACE is also an opportunity for the county to demonstrate its commitment to local government partners, like the city of Tigard, that is keenly interested in this program. It is likely that most new CPACE development would occur within Washington County's local cities versus within our unincorporated areas. Enabling the program and allowing local cities to tailor their approach signals a willingness to support each local city's individual goals around resilience, sustainability, and development. In staff's preliminary assessment of the program that has included multiple interviews with CPACE experts, including staff at other Oregon counties, Energy Trust of Oregon, CPACE lenders, and developers, we see the risks to the county to be manageable. To be sure, this is one of our next steps. Should your board be interested in implementing the program, we do recommend a full financial and legal review of the program before considering program adoption. The primary risk to the county is associated with funding the administration of the program and the ability of the county to recoup our administrative costs. Oregon statute allows counties to charge fees for program-related work. If there's a steady amount of CPACE projects, this should not be an issue. Otherwise, staff time will need to be supported from other existing funding sources. Next slide, please. When considering a new program such as CPACE, we often look to see how such a program would be linked to existing county and local agency policies. There are two primary ways in which CPACE would connect with existing policies. First, into the target goal of the program, CPACE would support local sustainability and resilience programs to help local agencies achieve their climate action goals through incentivizing climate-forward building improvements. Second, CPACE can act as an economic development tool. As I previously stated, to a developer or property owner, CPACE can help to mitigate the financial risk, reduce the cost of financing, and lower ongoing operating costs. These benefits combined offer strong support to commercial development. In this time of volatile financial markets, rising costs, and supply chain issues, the incentives and stability of the CPACE program will be a welcome news to those developing projects within our county. New commercial development, of course, also offers powerful economic benefits to the county, including increased spending, job creation, and increased tax revenue. Next slide, please. In our preliminary review of the CPACE program, we see several upsides and manageable risks. Our analytical conclusions from the analysis hinge on four primary takeaways. First, precedence. Washington County would not be the first county to adopt CPACE in Oregon, which means that we can borrow and learn from those that have already adopted the program. Second, risk. Risk appears to be minimal, even in the worst case scenario of a default, in which case the property would go through our typical foreclosure process. The county can also charge fees for program administration. Third, benefits. Benefits are clear in the form of incentivizing both sustainability and economic development. In addition, there is demand for this program as demonstrated by multiple developer property owners stated interest in the county adopting the program. And lastly, flexibility. We have an opportunity to build a CPACE program incrementally. What I mean by this is that we can learn from the first few projects that come through the program, and in the future, consider how to make it more powerful, perhaps by linking it to other programs or policies like a climate action plan, or tailoring pathways for the program for specific use types, like affordable housing. Next slide, please. If your board would like to continue to move towards a CPACE implementation, we recommend the following steps. Staff to conduct a full legal and financial review of the CPACE program. Staff to prepare a program implementation plan. This would be a detailed guide to program implementation. Staff to draft a CPACE ordinance, and to bring these pieces, the review plan and ordinance, back to the board for consideration. Next slide, please. I'm going to land here on our discussion questions. So the questions that we have again for you today are, what questions do you have about the CPACE program? What additional information do you need? And what questions do you have about next steps? And with that, I will turn it to you all for discussion and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioners, who would like to go first? Commissioner Treese, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to extend my appreciation to Matt and the team for the work that they've done to bring this to us and to analyze whether or not this is a program that we should be moving forward. I will tell you, I'm very supportive of this. It gives us the opportunity to address our sustainability issues and at the same time have an economic development tool. Matt's gone over all those benefits, but again, I just want to extend my appreciation for the work that has been done here. Thank you.
I'll go next.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll go next. It certainly appears to be promising. I don't see any objectionable items. It'll be interesting to see what the estimated county administrative cost will be in what areas. And then the legal question I would have of Tom when he gets into this analysis is, I don't know whether these private lenders get into a first position in regard to the assets in case of default, or what does that do to our property taxes? People who go in default normally owe a lot of money everywhere, and I'm just wondering if they are coming into a first position in regard to all the assets of the entity, so that we may not only not recover our administrative costs, but not our taxes as well. So that would be my only question, but it sounds like a very promising program.
It looks like our CFO, Greg Munn, may have a response to your question, Commissioner Rogers.
Hi, everybody. This is my first time on, so my camera's a little bit wonky, but Commissioner Rogers, I do have an answer for you on that. And we went through the complete analysis into Deschutes County as well. And the short answer is that the county remains in the first position in the instance of a default. The lending institution, however, under the CPACE program would move into the second position. So once the county's lien taxes were satisfied, then it would go to the lending institution of the CPACE program. That was a good question.
All righty. Commissioner Willie or Commissioner Fye, thoughts, questions?
No, I like the program. I was aware of this program. Thank you, Pam, for bringing this forward, because right after you did that, then I met with another business that is actually looking at this program. So I think it's going to be important that we provide this as an opportunity to those businesses who are willing to invest in sustainability and help us in our environmental footprint. So good job on this, Matt. Thank you.
And thumbs up for me as well.
Okay. I have a few questions. So in terms of this being enabled and the county efforts, would this apply, since it's available to counties under state law, would our action apply just to the unincorporated areas, or would it be countywide? I couldn't quite get that question answered from the memo. Maybe I missed it.
Chair Harrington, my understanding is that it would be enabled countywide across all jurisdictions. That is how Multnomah County has adopted their program, and my understanding is that's how Deschutes County has adopted their program as well.
But we have a different charter than they do. Mr. Carr, have you had a chance to confirm that, or is that just needs to be added to the list in the first next step?
I have not confirmed that, so we would put that on our list of things to look at.
Okay, thank you. I appreciated that through the presentation today, the loan recovery mechanism has been clarified, because that was one of the questions that I had based off of the memo that was in the packet. So that takes care of that. But another question that I have that I'm hoping you can take care of through the next steps and research. You know, this is new territory for us, and given what I'm trying to understand is, so if we do this work up front and there is a fee for service, for example, that's, I'm assuming, a once and done fee up front, versus something that we have to carry over the course of time, because in your presentation you talked about should there be a steady pace, or that a steady pace would be needed. So that got me thinking that I'm wondering if that staff carry load, or that obligation, is a forever thing or not, which then got me thinking, well, this might be, while I'm supportive of moving forward with this CPACE program, we may want to set it up so that it is just a 5-year program with a sunset date, so that there is a mechanism for future boards to work with staff to really look at the return on investment and the cost impact. So I realize that your next steps have further research, right, involved in this. And so I just wanted to put that idea, that question and idea out there as part of that research. Okay, so if you could go back to the prior slide, please. So I myself join others in wanting to continue to move forward with next steps, so that after the full legal and financial review, the preparation of the plan, and the drafting of said ordinance, that you come back to the board with what said proposal would be before the board makes a final decision for adoption.
Terrific, Chair Harrington. Thank you. We can do that. We can continue to move forward, and very excited to have our new CFO, Greg Munn, here, who is really the expert, having just gone through this in Deschutes County. So thank you for that, Director.
So I think in your next steps, part of what, based upon the preliminary thought that this applies countywide, I understand that, you know, you're well connected with the economic development managers across the county. But I think what this would require be done is for Ms. Angie, as she works with all the city managers, to make sure that they have a level of awareness, and that we make sure that all of the mayors and city councils know that this is a supportive thing, and that would go from there. Mr. Munn.
Okay, I thought I would just jump in on the question, Chair Harrington, that you had about the geographic boundary of the program.
We can just hold that for the research phase. It's okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay, all righty. Thank you very much. Not a problem. We just want to make sure that it's clear to everybody. So, Great. Okay. Well, without further ado, I think we're all set then, Matt.
Hey, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much to you as well. Our last topic for the work session today will be an executive session. And while we were meeting earlier, I recalled something that I had meant to confirm with Ms. Angie. I believe this is our first year of celebrating Juneteenth as a holiday and a county holiday. So as such, is Monday, June 20th a holiday?
It is. It is. So offices will be closed on the 20th.
Yes. So next Monday, just so everybody knows, it's not a normal business day. It is a new holiday day. So since it's the first year, I figured it was worth mentioning to remind ourselves. So cool. Great. All righty. Is there anything else from board or leadership before we move on to executive session? Anything that anyone wanted to mention? Go ahead, Ms. Angie.
Just an item looking forward to next Tuesday. I would ask if the board is okay, me being excused in the afternoon work session so I can attend my son's middle school graduation. And Aaron Calvert will be serving in my absence.
Wonderful. Great.
Thank you.
All righty then. So commissioners, I'm going to assume that we can press on through the executive session without taking a break. Okay, great. So towards that end, I'm looking for a motion to move to executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub H for the consideration of potential litigation. We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers. We have a second from Commissioner Fye. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. So we will hereby move out of this Zoom meeting and into a different Zoom meeting link for the executive session. See you on the other side.